Hello, shooters. My name is James Towle, and welcome back to Trigger Sports TV. We're here at the Whittington Center in Raton, New Mexico for the Rocky Mountain 3-gun. And John Paul of John Paul Rifles, who is the sponsor of the event, is going to take me aside and show me some long-distance shooting. Now, we were fortunate enough to be able to sponsor this event, and I'm going to get some tips from John Paul, so don't go away. Hi shooters, I'm here with John Paul of JP Enterprises, and a little earlier we went out to the range, we looked at some guns, and I did a little shooting. With the help of John Paul, I actually hit a couple of targets. So let's critique that a little bit. What do you think I did right there?
Well, you got your position on the rifle right, and you learned how to use the monopod, and I think you had your trigger control good. And you learned something about the reticle system and the hold-offs. And I think you just needed to refine your trigger control and maybe the ability.
Yeah, the trigger control, I think, actually, on the close targets, you know, where I was so confident, I think I just jerked that trigger.
All right,
Safety on or off?
Safety's off. It's ready to fire. So first hold 1 mil on the pig, and I would actually not hold any wind on it. Up. We're a little bit off that one. I'll tell you what, it's so common that people will miss the easier targets because you think they're easier and you get overconfident, right, and then you fail to follow through.
And you worry about the longer distance ones and
right,
forget the tactics. This is the gun, my proud ownership of one of your rifles. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about mine, then we'll talk about yours, and then we'll talk about the other one.
Sure. Well, this is a great example of our CTR-02. The 02 stands for 2002. And it's kind of interesting because this is the 10th year of this rifle, like it's the 10th year of this match. And we're actually made a special edition of this that's going to be given away later. This one's got presentation grade finish, which is pretty stunning. Almost too pretty to shoot, don't you think? But it shoots. So we like to do art that shoots. Yeah, we also do pragmatic rifles too, especially for the law enforcement military community. Right. But this is an example of just how beautiful we can make these things. And I also see that you got all the options here. You got the thermal dissipator, which is on the barrel, and that really sucks the heat out of that barrel while the heat is actually generated right in front of the throat area. And it's got an adjustable gas system which allows you to tune the bolt velocity into the sweet spot, gets rid of that pounding effect that you feel on a lot of rifles, and that's why the sight recovery is so fast. So a lot of technology in here that makes this an all-out state-of-the-art competition rifle. Still is.
It still is, and that's what I'm going to ask you.
Exactly.
Can this rifle be purchased now?
Absolutely. We're going to continue to offer this platform. We've gone to a side charging system on it now called the SCR-11, basically the same gun with a side charging system. And we decided that is a little bit easier to manipulate, and you can actually charge it off the when you're prone on it without having to relinquish your cheek weld on the rifle. So it's got some other benefits to it. But this rifle will do a fine job, and it's also got a Magpul UBR stock. That happens to be one of my favorites because it's really not like a collapsible stock. You can adjust the length of pull, but the cheek piece remains up front where you want it. So when you mount the rifle, the cheek piece remains there, and I'm not pulling my whiskers out in a traditional. I hate that, you know. So yeah, this is one of my favorite stocks. In fact, you see, I'm running that same stock on the rifle that I'm using here at the match.
Right. Okay.
So
and the biggest difference between then the rifle I have and what you have is one, I see the sighting system is different. Mm-hmm. And you chose that sighting system over the ACOG because.
Well, that's a long story. Actually, this is still one of my favorites. But this has got one of these new Zorowski 1-6s. And it's kind of like the best of all worlds because at 1 power, you've got 2 eyes open reflexive engagement like shooting a traditional dot sight. But then at 6 power, you've got enough magnification for some pretty serious precision work with it. It's also got a mill tree reticle. In other words, a reticle it looks like a Christmas tree, and the graduations are in mills, and then that's what I would call a universal reticle, so that once you know your dope in that system, then you have your hold-offs with this reticle in here all the way down to 5.5 mils, which takes you out to over 700 3,500 yards with the cartridge I'm shooting. The other big difference here is your rifle is a 223 rifle in the small frame platform, and I happen to be shooting in the heavy metal division, so I'm shooting a 308, so this takes the larger magazines, the larger cartridge family, and I'm shooting this in 308, which is what's required to be shooting heavy metal at this match.
Okay, so is there a movement away from 223 to 308?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
It's just another division that has kind of picked up a lot of steam, and it's kind of like forcing people to shoot the worst of all worlds. You got the 308 rifle, a 12-gauge pump, and a single stack 45.
Okay.
So it's kind of the masochist division, so to speak.
So is there an evolution in your particular rifle coming ahead? Is there more that you plan on doing with JP Enterprises?
We never stop.
Well, I'm sure of that. You guys are 24/7. I know that. You're absolutely correct there. But I'm thinking about the rifle that I bought, that we looked at, the rifle that you were competing with, right, the rifle that I actually fired as a sniper rifle, and wondering what the next step in evolution will be for JP Enterprises. Is there anything you can tell us, or is this still under wraps? We'll get JP's answer when we come back. And wondering what the next step in evolution will be for JP Enterprises. Is there anything you can tell us, or is this still under wraps?
Well, we're certainly going more in the way of long-range precision, and because of that, I've kind of changed the games that I play. Even though I still shoot this 3-gun competition, I started to shoot a lot more of these long-range tactical rifles, where instead of shooting maybe out to 300-400 yards, now we're shooting typically 300 to 1,100 or 1,200 yards. See, and it's a different type of equipment, a different type of mindset altogether. And I had to immerse myself in that to really understand how the equipment needed to perform to really optimize for that kind of use, because that's kind of the frontier for us, and that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, as we go to these, I am seeing more and more professionals, either in law enforcement or professional shooters, participating in these, and maybe not as many people who think of it as a weekend sport. What do you see?
Yeah, there's more and more interest. In fact, when I go to these long-range matches, it's surprising. I would say that 50% of the people there are from the law enforcement and military community, and that's really good to see.
Right.
And there's a lot of people from Range 37, a lot of instructors, and these guys are taking their own time and their own money to come out and shoot these events, so that they're further refining their skill set, and also they're keeping up on what the latest equipment is, so when they can go back to their units and relay that information, and improves everybody's skill at that point.
Okay, is there any difference in weight between the two? The way yours is laid out and the way mine is?
You got an 18-inch medium contour, and actually this is a 16-inch 308, and you'll be surprised at the overall weight of these rifles, despite the fact that you got the big horsepower rifle here, is not that much different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, that's a very steady. That's really a nice scope.
So this is a 16-inch LRP-07 here, and of course you see it's got a non-reciprocating side charging system. So that's one of the unique features of it, and it feels like it's on roller bearings when you operate. I love that about these rifles. I've got this 1-to-6 on here, but you notice I still have some iron sights, and that's because in some cases I might want to leave this thing set at 4, 5, 6 power for my long-range shooting, and I don't want to have to be fooling around cranking this thing back down for the close-range shots. So all I have to do is roll into these backup sights.
That's what I did here by leaving the ACOG on.
Yep, that's a great
and then
setup.
Moving over here.
In fact, you got that ACOG with our special reticle in there, which is trajectory mapped to this rifle, and then you just roll over into this short-range sight here, and that solves both problems there.
Yeah, without a doubt, the rifle is much smarter than I am. All right, John Paul, now we had a side match, and thank you for allowing us to help you sponsor that side match. And we've had a lot of competitors. What do you think the winning score is going to be there?
I think that the winning score in that will be somewhere in the 17, 18 second bracket with all 5 targets hit.
Okay, because I think we've got at least 1 or 2 in the 17 area right now, huh?
Okay, well, I could be wrong, but I think I shot it in like a little over 20, and of course these young guys are up there, and I knew that they could eventually squeeze a little bit of that wasted time out of there, and I thought for sure someone would get an extra 2-3 seconds out of there, but And I saw one guy run about a 1497 on it, but he missed a target. And I think at a certain point, see, you reach that optimization and you push that envelope any further and you're missing the shot. See,
right, you're moving
and
too
that is
fast.
always the question on that is the time, without missing, obviously your time is irrelevant if you miss one of the 5 targets, and where you can compress that and where that envelope is. So
that this is a timed event, correct? So if it's a timed event, why would the shooter want to wait until he hears the strike before he goes to the next target? What advantage is that? I mean, you guys are seeing it and calling it out. So what difference does it make if I already go to 2, to 3, to 4?
You see it before you hear it. See, it's...
Yeah, but once I squeeze it off...
Why are they doing that here? It's because they're shooting the IPSC, or they're shooting 3-gun, and that kind of, they want to make sure they don't get a miss. But you can't do anything with a miss here, because what they're doing is they're moving on to the next target, because you only got 5 chances. So you take your 5 shots, and if you miss, you miss.
Yeah.
Then you go through it, finish up, and you'll have to come back and try again to get your 5.
That's
right.
what he's asking.
But that's what I'm saying.
Question is
If I'm on the pig and I pull the trigger, I'm going to the turkey.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to wait for you
There
to
you
call
go.
out.
That is
Right?
that is-
And that's what I'm seeing a lot of them doing. They're waiting.
That is correct.
So that's costing them time. People were sitting there that let that first round go on target 1, and they're waiting for someone to tell them go to the next target.
well,
And I think on a timed event, I'm wondering what are they waiting for? Shouldn't they be just going? And the guys that are getting close to that 17 mark, I think, already know that, and they sit down there, they let that round off, and they're going to the next one.
Absolutely, right. That's probably the biggest pitfall for someone who doesn't do that is they want to see that hit. It's so addicting to want to see that bullet. No, because you break the shot, and that bullet actually takes a considerable amount of time there, which
Right.
you are wasting.
Right.
So as soon as you break the shot, you have the confidence in the sight picture. You're going to index and compose the next shot.
Right. Now that's mine. That's what you're competing with. But now here on the range, we have an entirely different one, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we should go over and we should look at that one, and it's sitting over on the range. Now here, JP has been kind enough to, going to give me some instruction. I'm not a long distance shooter. Heck, some people say I'm not even a short distance shooter. But JP is going to take a complete novice and show them how to reach out there and touch a buffalo at over 1,000 yards.
That buffalo is at 1,125 yards out there.
Okay.
That's a good poke.
Okay, let's go see what we can find out.
Okay, this is a chassis type manual operated rifle, and we call it an MR10 manual rifle of 2010, which was there again our year of design on this. A couple things here. This is really a precision long range platform, and we also do gas guns that in these same kinds of long range cartridges. They really offer the same levels of precision, just self loaders as opposed to bolt guns. But some people want to stick with the bolt guns, and one of the main things here we came up with is this modular chassis system. It's got a folding stock so a guy can get in his rucksack. It's got 2 possible different forearms. It's got a flat beaver tail style, but we also have a round or a tubular handguard like the ARs for guys that want to put the accessories, like your law enforcement military people. They have night vision or they want thermal imaging. They can all that stuff. All those accessories mount on that. Now,
You set this one up specifically for this long-range shooting, however.
that's right. Now, the optic on here happens to be one of the brand new Bushnell HDMR military scopes, and it's got a Horus Vision H59 reticle in it. And more people are switching over to that system. I'm kind of a dyed-in-the-wool Horus Vision shooter. And what that means is there's a grid pattern in the scope. When people first look at one of these, they think, "Oh my God, way too much information." But after you kind of wrap your head around it and shoot it a bit, and they actually have an online game you can play with this.
Oh, yeah?
You just realize just how intuitive it is and how fast it is relative to dial-up. So, in other words, you've got this kind of a Christmas tree looking grid in there, and the main zero on this rifle happens to be 100 yards. And then, of course, I bring out my smartphone, and I can plug in this. I can call up this particular weapon is in my smartphone. I'll call up the cartridge 6.5 Creedmoor. And by the way, Hornady has come up with this great cartridge, which is a bit of an improvement over the 260, which has traditionally been the popular 6.5 millimeter type cartridge used in a lot of these rifles. And they have donated the ammo for this side match.
Good.
So that's what this is chambered in. And this cartridge launches a 140 grain AMAX bullet with an extremely high ballistic coefficient, and by that I mean it flies through the air, very slippery. It flies through the air very efficiently, and so it loses velocity relatively slowly, and that cartridge is supersonic out beyond a mile here. And so the supersonic range of a cartridge dictates kind of its useful range. So we're shooting out to 1125. We could actually shoot out much further with this rifle if we wanted to. So I plug into that dope in my smartphone here, and then it's going to print me out it's going to show me a chart of hold-offs. And let's just say that I'm shooting at that 1125 yard target. What's going to tell me is that that's an 8.5 mil hold with that cartridge. And so, in other words, 8.5 mils below the main, and you hold that on there, and now we're going to look at the wind. We happen to be lucky now, there's virtually no wind.
Yeah.
But let's say there was about a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind here at full value, which means it's either coming from 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. In other words, the full value of that wind is added into the equation. Then it's going to tell me that I need to also add, I'm just guessing, 1.5 or 2 mils to the hold off of that target.
Right, so you come down to the 8.5 and then you move.
Go over, right, exactly. So that's your hold. Now, then we talk about the technique of shooting the rifle. So this rifle happens to have a really refined match grade trigger in it, about a pound, so it's very, very refined, and you want to dry fire it before you shoot it.
So this is really set up for long distance shooting.
That's right.
The application for this rifle is long distance shooting, sniper shooting.
Right.
If I take the sight off, I still have basically a sniper rifle. Now, I'm not going to, in other words, I'm not going to use this in close combat. This is designed for it. Okay, long distance shooting.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, now there's plenty of matches like that. Some are called sniper matches, some are called steel safari,
right.
a little more politically correct. So.
Exactly.
In the scheme of this side match, which is timed, we're trying to get those rounds off as fast as possible, and that's where this monopod comes in handy here. Yep. This monopod isn't quite as stable as those bags, but it gives you the ability to quickly change up your elevation hold on the rifle and change your position on it. And I can choke up on it, get more elevation, drop it down in my hand, and
it's basically by squeezing your fist and moving it up and down on that pod.
Your heel of your hand then is going to be on the ground, and that's going to be your third point bearing. So the important thing here is to get the stability out of the rifle. You got your bipod, you got one more point of bearing, and that third point of bearing is going to sync out most of your body signature of the rifle. So then you're going to take your hold, find your, say, 1 mil hold on the pig, and you're going to put a little bit of pressure. Usually you're going to load up the bipod. So you're loading up the bipod forward just a bit to get the most consistency out of the rifle. Squeezing the monopod with just the pad, the tip of the pad of your finger, breaking that shot. And then you're going to cycle it. You can cycle it without getting off it. See, that's kind of the beauty of this. And then you can, not losing sight of your target, and find the turkey, then the ram, and then the silhouette target out there.
All right, well, let's see if I can follow through with any of that. Let me try the dry fire first.
Sure, dry fire.
Have a look and see if whether or not I'm even. Okay, so let's see, what are we looking at? 8 pig, huh? 8. See, 8 turkey. I see 7 pig. There's 8 pig. Where is it? Okay, 8 pig. And that is 1.0, so that's right on.
Yep.
Ooh, woo.
Right. Get used to that.
You got that right. It is a very
woo. You don't want to touch it until you're ready to fire.
Okay, I got it. Shooters will be right back. John Paul has brought something with him. Tell us about what you have in your hand now.
Well, in an effort to constantly refine things, we came up with this little device in the last year. One of the things we try to accomplish in our rifles, which is that smooth, silent feel to them. You know, that feel of quality, where you notice when you cycle them, when you dry cycle them, you don't hear any spring or any of that stuff going on. And that's always been a battle for us with how we treat the springs and the extension tube and everything that rides in that buffer assembly. And so we decided to actually isolate the spring from the outside of the buffer tube. So we came up with a captured spring system. So this actually includes the buffer here, which gives you the dead blow hammer effect that keeps the gun and battery under cycling. And here's our action spring, and here's our buffer down here. And this actually replaces everything that's in the buttstock now, and it's captured. See, so you see that's how it works when the rifle cycles. And then, and when you open up the gun out, this thing just falls right out for cleaning and service. And it actually eliminates all the mechanical feedback off the gun and under live fire that you would hear. So I'm going to give you this one here, and you can try that in your rifle.
Yeah, that's very smooth and very quiet.
Yeah, you'll find that when you actually live fire the rifle, it's like it's funny because watch people shoot one the first time, they'll actually think the rifle malfunctioned because they didn't hear any of that normal stuff that's going on.
Right. Okay, hey, so this is a new refinement.
Yeah, it generated a huge amount of excitement at SHOT Show this year.
Okay. And you can buy this accessory for any of your rifles?
We have it for the AR-15 class of rifles, and we make one for the large frame like the LRP-07 or the LR-308 type rifles.
Okay. So go to JP Enterprises, get one of these. Shooters, we've enjoyed being out here at the Whittington Center, and we really appreciate the fact that John Paul was able to pull me aside and give me some tips on long-distance shooting, something that I'm not that strong in, but I'm feeling better about it. I'll see you next week with a new show.